Hello, I'm Will Sampson. Welcome to the Woodworking Network podcast. Welcome to the Woodworking Network podcast, where we explore the business of woodworking and what it takes to succeed. I'm Will Sampson. This episode is sponsored by FDMC Magazine, and don't forget to take our survey at woodworkingnetwork.com/podcast-survey. Today we'll be talking more with Jeffrey Nichols about preventing fires and explosions from wood dust. But first I want to talk about what cost safety. We all know that woodworking is an inherently dangerous activity. Besides the obvious risks from high-speed, sharp cutting tools, there are less obvious dangers from breathing wood and abrasive dust. And of course, there's the ever-present danger of a fire or explosion. As manufacturers, the question we in the woodworking industry must ask is how we can appropriately ensure safety while at the same time providing efficient productivity. I've seen shops and factories that were spotless, with little or no dust to be seen anywhere. I've also seen facilities that were clearly an accident waiting to happen, with dust piled high everywhere and disorganized stacks of work in progress littered about the debris-strewn floors. If you talk to the folks in the messy plants, they often shrug and say they don't have time, or management doesn't give them time to keep things tidy because they are too busy in production. But those clean shops are just as, if not more efficient, in their output. What's going on? It's really a difference in perceptions. The messy shops don't understand that a clean, safe, and organized work environment leads to more efficiency, more productivity, and ultimately more profits. The messy shop folks see safety and cleaning as a burden that takes away from production. Who's right? I know in my own small one-man shop that things can easily get out of hand when I'm trying to get a major project out the door on a deadline. Things pile up on workbenches, offcuts wind up in a pile on the floor, tools don't get put away. Then what happens? The chaos finally gets too much, and all production has to stop to find that one tool or clear a work surface for the next process. That disruptive standstill wouldn't happen if there was a continuous effort to keep things clean and organized all the time. It has to be a continuous effort that not only is supported by management, but also is demanded. Once it becomes the standard procedure, it no longer is a burden. Tools aren't misplaced. There's no dust to catch fire, no debris to trip over or move out of the way. Safe, clean processes just become the norm. I've long been an advocate for making safe practices easy and unavoidable. One of the first steps I took in my own shop was to hang ear protection muffs over the switches on every machine. It becomes just normal to put on the earmuffs before turning on the machine. Of course, in a shop with more than one person, the ear and eye protection need to go on at the front door, but you get the idea. Making safety painless and automatic makes all of us safer and more efficient. This isn't something to be relegated to a safety committee or some top-down edict from the front office. Whether you're the boss or a production line employee, safety is ultimately your responsibility. Make it automatic for yourself, and you're part of the process. See how much more efficient you'll be, and let the safe practices spread around you. Speaking of safety, I want to return to our conversation with Jeff Nichols on wood dust fires prevention. But first, let's pause for a word from our sponsor. FDMC Magazine is your vital source of information to improve your woodworking business, whether it is keeping you apprised of the latest advances in manufacturing, helping you solve your wood technology problems with Gene Wengert, or inspiring you with case histories about successful businesses and best practices. FDMC Magazine is there to be the sharpest business tool in your shop. Learn more and subscribe for free at woodworkingnetwork.com/FDMC. Now let's get back to Jeff Nichols and get into the nitty-gritty of how spark detection works.
I've seen some of the demonstrations, at trade shows and things like that of how it works, and it seems pretty impressive in a demonstration.
Yeah.
How effective really are these systems? Does it really extinguish the spark instantaneously like that?
It does, within milliseconds. You got to figure that your minimum conveying velocity for wood dust is probably around 4,000 feet a minute. So that dust is hauling through that dust collection system. All this has got to happen instantaneously within milliseconds. You've got to detect and extinguish that spark. You've got to move water through the water piping, through the valve, through the nozzle, create the optimum spray pattern, because we know that if we can optimize that spray pattern, the smaller the water droplet, the more cooling effect it has on a spark. But you still got to have a large enough droplet to be transported all the way across that duct and extinguish that spark. So the amount of water pressure, the spray pattern, all that's real critical to using, and the amount of extinguishing time and the amount of extinguishing water you use is all critical to extinguishing sparks and numbers of sparks. And of course, it'll stay on if it's still seeing a stream of sparks, and it'll automatically. It can be programmed to automatically shut down machinery, sound alarms, whatever. If you blow a belt on a sander and create a fire, or you've got a sander fire, or you've got something smoldering from your router, something like that.
That makes sense. Now, what is involved in installing a spark detection system? Is it new piping, or is it just electronics and then plumbing, or what's involved?
It's when you first see it, it looks a little complicated. After you've installed one, they're pretty simple. Graycon supplies all the tools to mount everything from the outside of the duct. You don't have to get inside. All the hole saws, all the tools to hold the mounting adapter while you're screwing it onto the duct, and then the sensor will plug into that. Same with the nozzles. So then it's a matter of we walking it with the customer and saying, okay, this is the ideal place to locate a spark detector and an extinguishing nozzle. Do we have power? Do we have water nearby? So that's the next thing we look at. And a lot of times it'll be a sprinkler system. Sometimes it's a dry system. So we do have to run piping across the plant from the water main to the spark detection system. We've got to have water right there at the valve so that it's accessible instantaneously to be able to spray and put that spray pattern in the duct and extinguish that spark. So sometimes there is quite a bit of electrical and plumbing in the larger plants, but in the smaller plants, usually if they've got a dust collector right outside, that's where we'll put the nozzle. Try to keep it inside so we don't have to add freeze protection. And usually they've got some kind of water and power right there. We can mount the panel. We can run the wires straight up the wall and down the duct 20 feet to the detectors, mount the nozzle, run a couple wires up to a flow switch and to a valve. And it's pretty simple installation for a small operation that only needs one zone of protection.
Now, what's the affordability of spark detection in relation to the size of an operation, or is size not a consideration?
No, size is a consideration. A small manufacturer, somebody who's got 10, 15 employees and they've got one dust collector outside, I use a rule of thumb of $5,000 or $6,000 per zone. It's going to run more for a single zone of protection, probably closer to 7 or 8, and then probably double that to get it installed. But on a larger plant where we've got multiple zones, maybe we've got a sander over here, a hammer mill over there, some saws over there. We've got to add 3 zones. Now we're looking at somewhere around $5,000 per zone, and probably another $5,000 to get each one of those installed.
But even at those prices, it's way cheaper than dealing with a fire.
Well, you don't want to deal with a dust collector fire. They can be real small and smoldering and burn a couple bags all the way to blowing that thing up and most of the time these things will go up like a Roman candle. You don't want your employees running out there with fire extinguishers, and you don't want the fire department to show up because they're going to show up. And, if they open that thing up and get a backblast, somebody's going to get hurt. So prevention is this is another reason why I like prevention so much. We can prevent so many of these incidences, and we do every day.
That's great. Now, does having effective spark protection have a significant effect on fire insurance rates? You mentioned earlier that some insurance companies require it.
Yeah, it used to in the 70s and 80s. We used to be able to get pretty good discounts for our customers by installing spark protection systems. Now it's the opposite. Your insurance company is more likely to say either put it in or we'll drop you.
Wow.
Yeah. It's changed quite a bit. There still may be some insurance companies that'll give you a break, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be, for sure.
Now, where should companies start to get up to speed on preventing combustible dust fires and explosions? Talk to somebody like you, or where can they go for information?
Yeah, I love talking to people. This is what I do all day, every day, is help people prevent fires and keep them from blowing up and burning down their buildings and hurting people and going out of business. I love doing this, but they can, the first thing they should probably do is talk to their insurance company and say, hey, is this something you recommend? Do we need it? Because their insurance broker is probably more likely to know than they are. And then they can do a lot of research online, looking at combustible dust, fire and explosion, how to prevent them, how to protect against them. I've written numerous articles for Woodworking magazines and Pellet Mill magazine and Powder and Book. And there's a lot of information they can find out about it online. And then they should go talk to people, get some pricing on different systems and installation. But again, I'm available to talk to anybody and help anybody I can.
Well, it sounds great, and we'll put some of your contact information into this broadcast at the end. But the other thing, it would seem with this new NFPA standard coming out, that this is the ideal time for folks to analyze their systems and think about what they should do to make their dust collection not only more efficient, but more fire safe.
Yeah, it's a good time to start looking at some capital projects. A lot of the dust collection systems I look at need to be upgraded and made more efficient. Frankly, you're wasting a lot of material and energy power with an inefficient dust collection system. And the more efficient it is, the less power you'll use. And then adding spark detection is, if you've got a fire hazard, it's almost a no-brainer. It's not a difficult thing to do. I forgot where I was going with that. What was the question again?
No, that's right. I was trying to get where people should get information to get more about this.
Oh yeah, insurance companies. They should get a copy of NFPA 664 for sure. So they've got that handy, and NFPA 652 as well, because it'll educate them as to the basics of combustible dust, fire, and explosion prevention. And additionally, I've written a book called The Ultimate Guide to Fire and Explosion Prevention, how to keep from burning down and blowing up your plant. And it's basically a guide, a quick 150-page guide, lots of pictures that explains to them what combustible dust is, what it does, how dangerous it is. And it's not meant to replace any of the big engineering journals, preventing fires and explosions in the industrial process. It's not meant to replace those. It's just meant as a guide for, the small operator or the frontline guys working in a big place to understand what they're working around and how to prevent it.
Well, that's more what we need anyway, because the engineering language goes above everybody's head, and
Yes.
we want people to solve this problem and prevent it. And so they need it in understandable language and that sort of thing.
And that's what I've written. It's all in layman's terms, easy to understand. It's written in plain English. Basically, I talked it out and then had it written. So
that's great. That's great. Yeah. And that book is available for folks.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon for like $15, or you can get the electronic copy for $3 or $4, I think. But if somebody wants to contact me, I'm happy to send them a PDF copy or even a hard copy.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think is important to get across to folks on this topic today?
Well, what we're talking about are engineering controls, fire prevention, fire protection, and explosion protection. But there's a whole hierarchy of controls from a lot of times you can eliminate or substitute or improve. You can look at your electrical hazards and improve those. You can look at your dust collection system and maybe it's leaking dust and creating a combustible dust hazard. You can fix those kind of things by elimination, substitution, and then add your engineering controls as a path forward. Fire prevention, fire protection, explosion protection. But then you also get into your administrative controls as far as management of change. I was just talking to somebody last week that says, we've been having a series of fires, but only since we've started trying to improve and increase production. And my explanation to them was, you're experiencing more fires, and these are basically precursors to a larger event or possible precursors. So here's some path forward ideas that you need to look at to improve the safety of your process as you're trying to increase production. So that's a lot and so management of change, that's called management of change as you're changing machinery out or changing product, and even processes change over time as bearings wear out and machinery wears out. So you always got to be looking at, so your hazard analysis, your dust hazard analysis is not just a one-time thing. It's really a continuous process for safety management.
We always talk about lean manufacturing and continuous improvement.
Yes.
And, I think a lot of people focused on efficiency in production don't think that safety is part of that, but it definitely has to be part of it.
It is. And then they may build that safety in when the plant is built, but as the plant changes and evolves and grows over time, those safety systems also have to grow and change over time to still safely protect the plant. And then further administrative controls, or some of the larger plants will make you get into PPE and fire retardant materials that people wear, and a lot of safety toes and safety shoes and safety goggles, and so there's just more. It ranges the whole safety around combustible dust processes. There's a whole wide range of things to look at.
That's great.
Your hierarchy of controls.
Well, I'm sure that we will be back to talk to you another time about this topic, because it's something that we need to remind our audience about on a regular basis. But I appreciate this short little overview of the new standard and what people can accomplish with spark detection. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Will. I really appreciate the opportunity.
That's it for today. If you'd like to get more information about spark detection, contact Jeff Nichols directly at jnichols, that's JNICHOLS, at industrialfireprevention.com, or visit his website at www.industrialfireprevention.com. If you are looking for more of our podcasts, you can find all of them at woodworkingnetwork.com/podcasts and in popular podcast channels. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks again to today's sponsor, FDMC Magazine, and a special thanks to Joshua Manga at Vegas Graycon for suggesting we talk to Jeff. If you have a comment or topic you'd like to see us explore, contact me at will.sampson@woodworkingnetwork.com. And we would really appreciate it if you fill out the survey at woodworkingnetwork.com/podcast-survey. Thanks for listening.